right, we're good to go. Welcome, everyone.
Okay, so hello, everyone. So good evening. So first of all, thank you all for attending. I just want to introduce the panel, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the webinar today and I suppose the point of it. So Michael Dubry, guest speaker, ex-Premier League football player. He'll give a full introduction later. We've got Dan Channon, Senior Manager on the Technology Recruitment Team. And we've got Maya, who looks after marketing operations for Apollo.
Hi, everyone.
So yeah, the reason we're here today is that ultimately, whatever walk of life you're in at the moment, whether you're sitting at home, you're employed, whether you're unemployed, you've recently lost your job, whether you've been furloughed, I think the one thing that's on everyone's mind at the moment is uncertainty. It's a real key topic. So you look at the world of COVID-19 at the moment, go back to 2-3 months ago, it's completely unexpected in terms of where we are today. You know, the world's turned on its head. You know, as a consequence, you know, we're all facing uncertainty day in and day out. From my own perspective as a business owner, you know, where the markets are going, what the economy is doing, there's so many different factors that we're juggling day in and day out. So Michael's here today. He's an ex-Premier League football player, elite level sport, and he's now an executive coach, and he's going to share some of the tips that helped him through his professional career, and hopefully will give some, give you some takeaways in terms of helping you manage what's happening at the moment and your own mindset. So we're not saying we've got all the answers, but definitely Michael's here to share his experience. In terms of the format for today, then we've got a presentation that Michael will deliver, and then we've got a Q&A session at the end of it. In terms of any questions you've got, feel free to shoot them through to us through the course of the webinar, and then we'll pick them up. And for those of you that are interested, we're going to be releasing the video on the Apollo Solutions website, or you can just reach out to any single one of us and we can send a link through to you. So look, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Michael, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about today's topic.
Okay. If you are calm, they will cope. It's not a meaningless headline or throwaway title. I'll reveal its depth and meaning as I move forward in this webinar, and how it can help navigate you through these uncertain and difficult times. But I really appreciate you joining us all here today. But before I continue, let me introduce myself. There's going to be a lot of me talking for the next 40 minutes or so. So rather than me tell you, let me show you. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Michael Dubry. I come from a background of professional football, and with the average professional football career lasting only 8 years, I'm proud to say mine lasted 20. I played much of my career in arguably the best league in the world, the English Premier League. I made over 500 appearances for clubs such as Chelsea, Leeds United, and Reading. There were many personal accolades in my career, also the European Cup Winners' Cup, the European Super Cup, as well as the Domestic League Cup to make a hat-trick of trophy wins. I played the game alongside legends, World Cup winners, icons, as well as wizards. I competed against some of the greatest names of my generation: Frank Lampard, David Beckham, Steven Gerrard, Thierry Henry, and Cristiano Ronaldo. Since retiring, I use my wealth of knowledge, my vast experience, and all my professional qualifications, and set myself up as a top executive coach. That's me. I'm very proud of my career and proud of what I achieved. also proud of who I've become. But I'm sure there might be a few in the room asking yourself, what will you get listening to a footballer for the next 40 minutes? This won't be a webinar just full of football and dressing room stories. Instead, I'll use my wealth of experience, my valuable knowledge and success in football and successfully transfer it into your world. Any football stories that I do tell will give you an insight into the mindset of an elite footballer. So listening to me for the next 40 minutes, you will, at the very least, take away 3 things. A new approach, regardless of your profession, your position, or your current employment status, you will be given a tool to deal with this currently difficult situation. A better understanding. You will see the current situation through the lens and perspective of others. This will help make better decisions in your own situation or position. Growth. The new tools will help change your mindset, focus, and show you how to get best prepared for what is next, even without knowing what is next. These things can benefit you massively in both your working and personal life. After all, one has a habit of affecting the other. If you are calm, they will cope. How will I get you to see this through this webinar is I will focus on positions and roles rather than just trying to cover the many different professions and industries in this room. It will be the best way for me to get all my points across and for everyone to get the learning outcomes that I promised earlier. I'll use an analogy of a commercial flight as the best way to explain and get my points across. So think of a commercial flight. The plane represents your working life. The different roles on the flight represent the position or role you hold at work. And the flight journey will represent the current situation. So I want you to start thinking about that now. I'm assuming everyone in the room has been on a commercial flight before, and you know on board a flight, you can be either one of 3 different positions. You can either be pilot, cabin crew, or passenger. You will be either one of these roles or positions on this flight. So if the positions on this flight represent your positions that you hold at work, it will resemble the pilot would be a CEO or executive management level of a company. The cabin crew would represent team leaders or manager level of a company. The passengers would represent employees or workers of a company, the self-employed, and those that are currently unemployed at the moment. You should be associating yourself with one of these roles. So start visualizing yourself, because it's important you do so before we actually move forward. I won't be going in between the analogy and reality throughout this, as it becomes too confusing for everyone, myself included. I will stay in the analogy and only switching back when I conclude everything at the end. Now you should have your positions. Welcome on board the flight. The flight is now in the air. 15 minutes into the flight, everything is normal. The pilot is in full control. The cabin crew has everything under control on the plane, and the passengers are happy and relaxed. It's a happy and harmonious flight so far. The seatbelt sign comes on, and the pilot comes on the tannoy and talks of going through some turbulence. It's something that everyone has heard before many times, so there's no real panic from anyone. But it's when it comes on again 20 minutes later, and the next message is to tell you that this is something far worse than turbulence. Now everyone starts to worry. It's the worst conditions of a generation. Nobody on the plane has ever experienced it. Not the pilot, the cabin crew, or any passenger. This is something new, something no one's experienced. it's a situation that's creating more questions than answers. Nobody has an idea of where the plane will get through this, how long it will be in it, when it will land, even where it will land. The only good news that's coming out of this so far is you're not the only plane going through it, and you will get through this and land at some point. Pilot, cabin crew, passengers alike will now start having to have a common range of emotion and thoughts. Like any sort of change or trauma, we all feel the same emotions, a common set of emotions, starting with shock and resulting in the end in a new mindset and moving forward. It all depends on the individual as well as the positions they hold as to how long they stay in the state of mind or emotion. Ideally, you want to get from shock to a new mindset as quickly as possible, with acceptance being the real checkpoint, as that is when the mind frame of negative to positive happens and then a continuous rise. The problem is on this plane, everyone experienced shock, and now denial, fear, anger, frustration is being allowed to breed. How soon you move forward out of these change of emotions is dependent on you. Here is the true meaning behind if you are calm, they will cope. We know that the plane is full of negative energy, negative emotions. The harmony is turning to tension. Uncertainty seems to be the only thing fueling this flight right now. But if you are calm, they will cope. But who should be calm and who will cope? And who exactly am I talking to? I'm talking to the cabin crew. If you are calm, the passengers will cope. Calm by definition is not showing of strong emotions. And that's what you will do. But it's deeper than just a definition, and here's why. Calm is in fact a coaching tool. Communication, authenticity, leadership, and manage. That's calm. Be calm. You become the change you want to see. You set the tone, you set the culture, you set the mood, environment, the atmosphere of the plane. The top always has the power and influence to set the tone. If you are calm, they will cope. Communication. Communication will prove to be your best weapon in this situation. Communicate with the cabin crew, communicate with the passengers, communicate with everyone. Do this from start to finish. And also communicate often and clearly. That will tone down any negative energy coming from within the plane. People want answers. People want to know what's going on, so communicate. And remember this tip. Someone once told me, the best communicators are the best listeners. So listen. Listen to everyone. Be that informative pilot or cabin crew member. We've all been on a plane and we've been through a bit of turbulence, but it's been helpful. We've had that pilot tell you, we're going through a bit of turbulence right now. Put your seatbelt on, relax. We should be through this in 10 minutes. But we've also been through there where you're just sitting there and felt the shudder and shaking. You not know what's going on. It's far worse. Communicate. Authenticity. Make sure you're authentic throughout. Everyone will see if you're not, and you'll be labeled a fraud. Don't act, don't pretend, just be genuine. You don't have to have all the answers, and it's okay to have a little bit of fear. That's authentic. You just can't lie. Anything less than authentic will actually cause you to tire and burn out yourself, both mentally and physically. You're going to need everyone's trust and belief if you are to lead and navigate them through this. And being authentic throughout will also gain you a lot of respect, and that will pay dividends later on when you might ask them of something. Now more than ever, you need to lead. It's time to get up and step up. Step up, guide, navigate, and lead them through this. Inspire them, motivate them, empower them. Lead them through these difficult times. And being authentic will help you find your leadership style, so you are comfortable when you step up front. Remember this: good leaders create more leaders, not more followers, because you're going to need leaders throughout this as well. And manage. Despite the situation, manage like normal. Give instructions, set targets for everyone to carry out. Try and restore a sense of normality despite it being far from normal. But again, you create the culture for your plane and passengers. You need people to be productive. Give instructions, set target and goals for everyone. But huge tip: manage your expectations. Don't expect people to produce the same as they was doing in normal circumstances. So manage expectations. And manage. Don't be a manager. Manage with your leader's mindset. If you are calm, trust me, they will cope. Use this tool. It's helpful, but don't try and skip any part of it. Missing out parts remind me of a situation I found myself when I was at Leeds United. And if the executive management would have been calm, a certain situation might have played out very much different, and I'll tell you how. Around 2003, I was at Leeds United. The club was going for a really bad time. So bad, in fact, that at the end of the season, we ended up going through 3 managers, a chairman, and ended up £84 million in debt. Yeah, that bad. They say no 2 days in football are the same, and I can vouch for that. And here's why. One morning, I must have woke up and drove to training like normal. I pulled in a petrol station, but not because I needed petrol, but because a big billboard outside said, Leeds United, £65 million in debt. I was like, how much? £65 million? How did you get £65 million? I was in training yesterday and nothing was said. Did it happen overnight? Someone been gambling? Anyway, I went to training and the manager held a team meeting. He said he knew as much as we did, but he was having a meeting with the chairman later. We'd have to prepare for the game as normal and put the news out of our head and concentrate on the game. Easier said than done. This was the only thing on people's lips, on their minds. It was a talk of the football world. We knew as much as the man on the street though, as much as the fans or media. In fact, the media knew more than us. Talk of administration set panic in the dressing room. Senior players and young players alike were becoming worried and very uncertain. Never before as players did we know about administration. Football clubs don't go into administration. They go into cup finals. Football clubs win trophies, get promoted, get relegated. Administration was not something we'd heard before. What happens in administration? What happens to players? All these questions, but no real answers from anyone. No executive management to answer it, and the coaches knew as much as us, so they weren't informing us. The lack of communication made it very frustrating for players, and that soon turned to anger. The only answers to the questions we were getting were in the papers and medias, but we'd been programmed for years to ignore those outlets. The pre and post game interviews were only ever about the club debt, administration, and what did we know. It was never about football, it was never about the game. We could never be honest in interviews. We could never say what we really thought. Couldn't tell them the truth that no one spoke to us, no one communicated, and we didn't know anything. We just had to keep saying the same things and playing united front. After being ignored for so long, we were actually told we was having a meeting with the management. All the players were to attend. Young, old, everyone. I remember sitting in the sports or the training ground waiting to see the chairman. Everyone was waiting to see the chairman. but instead it was a club secretary that turned up. We took this as a kick in the teeth, and that's to be polite. He couldn't even show up to explain things personal. The club didn't do too much explaining either. They just asked us to defer 60% of our wages until further notice. 60%. He said they'd leave us to think about it, but he needed an answer tonight and went back to his office. It was 6 o'clock, we'd been there since 4. We had our union rep there and we sent him along with our club captain. Our counter offer was we would defer 25% for the next 6 months, but no player under 22 or under a certain wage bracket would be asked to pay this. We had to look after the young players who were fearful, frustrated and scared. We actually thought it was a good counter offer, considering their treatment and considering we've done, none of this was our fault. After 30 minutes, the captain and our PFA rep come back and said that the club had not accepted our offer. In fact, they said we were being greedy. Imagine that. The club that overspent by £69 million called us greedy. There was no more talk, and they, in fact, closed the talks down. They shut it down. After that is a little bit even more distance, still no communication between us and executive management. We understood that they were under pressure, but we were only asking for communication. We didn't want to know their every move, their every decision, just instead wanted to know before the papers told us. The season was a struggle, players being sold, managers change, and of course, the uncertainty of what is going to happen next. We had to cope and deal with matters on the pitch. That's all we could do. That's all we were paid to do. And that's all we did. We survived the season in the Premier League, but the following season we weren't so fortunate. The money problems didn't stop, more assets were sold, and the club was a mere skeleton of what it once was. But I do believe that if the executive management had been calm from the start and starting with communication, it'd have been different. There was no leadership from any of them. Instead, they were ignored and actually showed they didn't trust or value us by not communicating or helping us through it. So if the executive management would have shown calm, it'd have been far easier for us to cope. And I say easier because we did cope. That's what we do. That's what we did. It'd just been easier for us. And it's the same for the passengers on the plane. Whether or not the pilot or the crew are calm, you still need to cope. But what do I mean by cope? By definition, cope is to effectively deal with something difficult. And that's what you will do. The passengers will deal with this difficult situation. They must cope regardless of the actions or behavior of anyone else. They must cope with the situation. And here's how. Control, overcome, productivity, excel. Control the things you can control. You control you. You can't control the situation, outcome, or other people, but you control how you deal with them. You control your attitude, your thinking, your communication, your relationships, your productivity. You control, you're responsive to the situation. So are you going to be the passenger that responds to the situation by pressing the bell, calling the cabin crew every 2 minutes, demanding, shouting, aggressively asking questions about what's going on? That horrible, annoying passenger that we've all seen. Don't use the situation as an excuse. You control your attitude, you control your thinking, your communication, and how you interact with others. You control all of this regardless of the situation. Overcome. The best way for you to overcome any negative feelings or emotions by accepting the situation you're in. Accept the situation for what it is. Will take you out any dark places of emotion, negativity. The situation is the worst situation you've seen. But once you realize and accept that, you can now start to change from a negative to a positive. Transition into what's next. Don't dwell on the negative places of fear, frustration, anger, uncertainty, because you've already accepted it. Productivity. Be productive. Use this time wisely. The situation will bring great opportunity for you to grow and excel. There's time. Grow, sharpen your skills, talents, your mindset, both personally and professionally. Trust me, be productive. You can do many stuff in the time. Just use your energy and time wisely. Excel. Whilst being productive with your time, make sure you still excel in your work, whatever you choose to do. Don't use this situation to lower your standards or even stop totally. The circumstances are different, maybe, but you still have a job or role to play. Keep your standards high, and here is a chance to raise them. Be remembered as the passenger that excelled through difficult periods, the one that stood out for the right reason. Be the one that stands out, that shines in a time of darkness. Be that one. Excel. And if you apply cope, trust me when I say there's a massive difference. A massive difference. And there's a time in my career when I had to cope, and there was a long period of uncertainty. In fact, there was a season of uncertainty. At the start of the 2008-2009 season, I was at Reading Football Club. I entered the season in my final year of a 2-year contract. We'd just been relegated the season before, but luckily we didn't lose too many key players, so we were one of the favourites to go straight back up. It was a season goal that we went back into the Premier League. In fact, no, it was a club expectation, a demand and a challenge that they put to the players and staff to get back up. My own personal goal was to play well and earn myself a contract extension. Entering the season in my final year wasn't a great feeling. It did leave me a lot of uncertainty about what could happen. Because a lot of things could happen that can jeopardise the season and affect the next one. Injuries, loss of form, being out of favour, especially for someone like myself that has suffered a few long-term terrible injuries. And I knew that an injury could ruin this season and also impact the next. But I quickly got that out of my head and focused. But worst case scenario happened. I got injured early into the season. I think it was a 4-week injury. So I was sidelined for 4 weeks. So if there was a cloud of uncertainty over my future before, it was now raining with possible thunder. Any negative thoughts or emotions I disposed of before were now lingering and trying to revisit. But I had to do what I've always done. I had to control what I could control. Not worry about the things that are out of my control. Get myself fit. I was out for 4 weeks. It's going to take me 4 weeks to get fit. Focus on that. Once I got fit, focus on getting back in the team. I couldn't affect how the team were playing. And they were playing well. They sat in the top 3, on target to getting back into the Premier League. But I knew I had to be playing, as being promoted but not playing would not get me a contract. If I allowed the negative emotions to set in, they would have me frustrated, angry, fearful, worried. All the negative emotions would do was serve to weigh me down. I worked hard and got myself back in the team, started playing well, picking up form and showing my worth. I was controlling the things that I could, me and my form. The only thing I had control over was me. My form continued until the final game of the season. I was even made captain for the last period of the games. Unfortunately though, we missed out on promotion, having lost in the playoff semi-final. Where did this leave me? Well, I had to meet with the club and discuss the what next contract talks. Even though I had played well at the back end of the season, stepped up when others dropped off, I wasn't too confident of earning a new contract. The club had their goal and it wasn't met. And I was right. Me and 7 others were casualties of that and were released. Tough pill to swallow for a professional, a competitive professional, that were told that you're not wanted was hard. Shock, denial, frustration, all in a space of 5 seconds. I left before anger had his say. I was only angry really at the the lack of respect in the meeting, I'd say, of how I was told. Not the fact that they didn't want me. Opinions are part of football, and it's never bothered me. If they did, then 30,000 people booing on a Saturday would have made me quit my job. I had this mindset all season that helped me cope with the season of uncertainty. The news didn't throw me too much. It just dented my professional ego, I suppose. So coming away, I'd stick with the mindset I've had all season. Control what I can, me, and I did that. Overcome all the uncertainty of no contract, fear, injury, doubt. Now I had to overcome this news. Productive. Always maximize my time to develop my skills and talents. Now I had to do it over again and make sure I was ready for what is next. Excel. I played well, improved, and my form was great in the big games as well. So even though it was not enough for Reading, it was enough for some clubs, scouts, and managers that saw good performance that might think we can need him in our team. So I went quickly to accepting the decision of Reading and my new mindset of what happening very quickly. Because of that, I found myself a new club. 2 weeks after being released, I teamed up with my former England under-21 manager and signed for Wycombe. So Cope is not just a fancy, cool tool. It actually works. It benefits you in times of uncertainty. Like now, you don't just have to be in sport. It works. It really does. At the time, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't sitting there thinking of Cope. I wasn't thinking C-O-P. I just used my mindset. And now I've just put that same mindset into a tool that you can now take away and use. If you look at the emotions curve, the Cope one, how it's huge, it's the difference between the old curve and the new curve, how everything is accelerated and positive. You're going through the same emotions, but using anger and fear in a positive, in a determined way, and not staying in the doom and gloom. How quickly you reach acceptance, the red dotted line where acceptance is against the old one. You don't stay in that negative place. So it's time for you to cope. It's not just a tool, it's a mindset. I've given you both the calm and the cope tools and applied them using an analogy of a commercial flight. And some of you may be thinking that it doesn't really work in reality, even despite hearing the benefits it used in my professional life. So let me conclude in reality. If you are a CEO, team leader, manager, or some sort of person that holds a small team under you, how will calm in this current situation help? Well, it will bridge the gap, if there is any, between you and your team. It won't allow any unrest or negative emotions to grow. You will empower people by just listening and allow them to be a voice. You might hear something that might be a solution. You still get productivity. You have people that want to work. You have people that want to excel in their work, and less pressure on yourself coming from within. And most of these mean you don't have to use wasted energy putting out fires in your own building. If you don't apply calm, the worst thing that will happen is you remain in the same place with the same mindset. That's down to you. It's a choice. But we all know, whether it's business or sport, that if you're standing still, you're falling behind. If you are an employee of a company, self-employed, or currently unemployed, how will Cope help you in your current situation? Will it put you in control? You become proactive and not just reactive. You don't worry about the things you can't control. You have a growth mindset. You're always looking to develop. You're always looking to grow. You raise your personal standards. You are ready for what is next. You can ignore and block out negativity. You might not be in control of your future destination, but you can choose the vehicle in which you travel. And if you are calm, they will cope. Thank you for listening. And I hope that has been of some help. And I'll hand back over to Siba.
Unmute my mic. Yeah, Mike, thanks a lot for that. That was really good. I think there were some really good points you raised there. And I think regardless of whatever your profession is or wherever you are in the stage of your life at the moment, there's some things that can be used by anyone. It's really about your mindset and I suppose controlling what is around you, what you can control. So but a couple of questions that have come through. So I'll throw it over to mine and we can just open it up to the floor and just see what everyone's thoughts are.
Definitely. So if you've got any additional questions, you can leave them in the Q&A or in the chat below, and I'll just go through some of the questions that have come through during the presentation. So one person asked, Michael, thinking back to your time at Leeds, if you were leading the club at the time, how would you approach the players? How would you have done that in terms in relation to the pay cuts?
Like I said, I just believe that he's just talking, letting them be informed what's happening. They're not going to have a say. That's why there's levels to a company. So, but if you're speaking to the senior players and letting them know where this is what's happening, we're going here, and being a little bit more informative rather than leaving us on the outside and then asking for huge favors, you're not going to get that. So just to be informed, everyone just wants to be like informed, not be the last person. It's even worse when you're finding out after you work for a club and you're finding out after the man in the newsagents knows. So if I was one of the executive management there, I would have just been informing, not the decisions, not what's going on, you know, the negotiations, what they're looking to sell, but at the same time could have told, you know, we've got a big meeting here. If it changes here, this might affect that. And just to keep people informed. And that's all, as players, that's all you wanted to know, that you're informed, that you're actually part of this.
Yeah. So just continuous communication. I think that's another one that's come through. So someone asked.
Just to add to that, actually, I think that question is particularly relevant in, I think, today's circumstances. I mean, if we're looking at a number of companies at the moment, you know, people are being asked to either take pay cuts or whether they're being asked to go part-time, and there's a lot of different things that are happening at the moment. So I think if I look at it from my perspective as a business owner, then I think it's just about clarity of communication and trying to make sure everyone's clear about, one, what's expected of them, and two, what the situation is. I think that you know, most people would rather have an honest and an open message rather than, you know, not being told anything. Like you said, Mike, you're in a situation where you're finding out from everyone else but the people that need to talk to you. So you might not have liked the message that you've got, but ultimately you'd still far rather have that message from the right people rather than have no communication at all. So yeah, I think it's a really difficult role. No one ever wants to hear those words, but I think it's all about approach, communication, and, you know, what does it mean to the company and what does it mean to the individual?
And just to add to that, Siba, it's like, if I tell you the message, how you deal with it and respond is down to you. So your response, if I'm telling you that we're making cuts, that's an honest message. That's down to you how you respond. If I'm keeping it secret and I'm going to spring you, now there's cuts. So I shouldn't then have the news and then be in charge and assuming what you're going to respond. My duty is to, here's the open and honest news. I'm going to give it to you. And you don't always have to give everything, you know. Most of us are parents, so we don't tell the kids everything, but we need to tell them the vital information and what's needed. So I think you just need to tell them information, but don't assume the response. It's your duty to give the information. It's the responsibility of the recipient and how they respond.
I suppose that ties in with what you were saying about cope. Yeah. And just making sure that you manage yourself in the right way. But look, it is all about clarity of communication. I think that's key to everything, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that honesty is something that I've always appreciated about you, Siva. Another thing that I've appreciated about you is your pep talks, and that's one of the other questions that has come through. Michael, what would you say is kind of one of the best talks you've ever had from a manager when things were difficult for you or when you weren't in a great position? And how did that affect you, that kind of pep talk or conversation?
A good pep talk. I mean, my thing is like managers. It's just always been the honest ones, like you say, that just and just been the same throughout, good, bad, or indifferent. You know, some managers just like you're in the team, they're great. When you're out the team, they change on you. So like down to your worth, then they start changing. But I couldn't pinpoint like top of my head, just one. But no, Luca Vialli was always straight, open, honest. I had a Dutch manager, Johan Boskamp. He was straight talking, honest, and even the ones that you don't like I've always said that one thing that sometimes people don't in football not is honest. If you don't pick me, fair enough, but don't try and sugarcoat it by saying, oh, it's because of this. Just say, you know what, he's playing better than you, and that's the route I went. Then it's for me then to go away and say, okay, then he's better than me. I need to find out why he's better than me and work harder at it, rather than saying, no, I just want to go this route because, you know, this and that, and then you don't have the truth yourself for you to go and work on. So the best managers are the ones that have always been straight, honest, thick and thin, and don't flirt between and changing.
Yeah, that's good. Dan, Siva, do you want to add anything before I move to the next question?
No, next one.
All right. So someone asked, sorry, was that you, Dan?
No, I think going to the next one. Siva gives me plenty of prep talks when needed, so I'm used to it.
Siva's very good at motivational prep talks, especially on a Monday morning when we're all still transitioning from the weekend. So someone asked, Michael, how did you deal with the anger and the fear? I guess this relates to the Leeds incident.
To be honest, I learned a long time ago in my football that I don't work too well with anger. It doesn't serve me, and bad decisions, or it just doesn't, it's not an emotion that does me any good. I once was angry at a decision a manager made, and I went onto the pitch and played angry, and I regret that decision every day. So the anger, like we go through that, we have a little bit of frustration and anger. Yes, the Leeds one, to be honest, I went through a lot more with that board that would spark anger in it, but I just dealt with it by, you know what, I'm just going to play my football, because it's the one thing, it's my escapism. Just, you know, frustrated was the biggest emotion, because you just want an answer. When you start getting angry, then you start taking yourself into deep negativity. You can always control frustration a little bit more than anger, so I never allowed myself to get angry. Frustration, yeah, it was frustrated not knowing, because, you know, we have a sense of responsibility, because I had family, dependents, and I want to know whether, you know, am I going to be told to leave? Am I going to lose my money? Am I going to get paid? Do you know what I mean? So I never allow myself to get angry as such. So it's maybe a skill or whatever, but anger doesn't really work well for me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot of people that, because of the level of uncertainty that everyone is going through, that you know, you're all going to be feeling a range of emotions, aren't you? From, like you said, fear, there's anger, it's all out of your control. So I think you summed it up really well in your presentation, Mike, when you said, you know, it's working out what can you control. I know it's easier said than done, but it's really about, I suppose, to some extent, accepting that, you know, this is the world as we know it. COVID-19, I mean, no one would have seen where we are now 2-3 months ago, but it is what it is. And the reality is, I mean, it's anyone's guess what it's going to be like. But, you know, my personal perspective is that, you know, we're not going to be any sense of normality as we know it for this year. I mean, could be wrong, who knows? But what we have to do is accept that it's here now. So how do we work around it? And I think, you know, you were saying things like, you know, you have to control, you know, always perform to your best, you know, so that's one thing. So what can you do? How can you add value? You know, where can you find a situation where you can you know, you can push as much as you can. So it's difficult. I think, you know, there's a range of emotions daily, and I think the first step of that is to deal with those emotions, accept it. Then it's, you know, what can we do?
Yeah, I agree on it. I think the main thing that's helped me personally is getting structure. So getting structure in your day, i.e. waking up, breakfast, have a workout if you have the space, and making sure you structure that day in bite-sized chunks. So whether it's sprints of an hour and a half, 2 hours, get up, have a coffee, walk around, because it is different working at home and it is stressful. It's a different kind of stress, but it's how you deal with that stress. But for me, it's definitely having a structure, having a plan, and making sure you stick to that as best as possible, but also set yourself goals. You've got to set yourself mini goals each day. This is what I want to target. This is what I want to do. And you get yourself over that.
So actually on that, one of the questions that's come through, Mike, is how do I use the tool to plan once this lockdown is finished? And that then leads into another question is also, can I share the tools with my team so we can work on individuals, and what can we work on as individuals and as a team as well? So what would you give in that scenario?
So the first one is, what was the first part of that question again, Siva?
How do I use the tool to plan once this lockdown is finished?
Okay, so depending on, so if you're an individual using Cope, like in your situation, like, you know, what do you feel is out of your control and what is in your control? You need to look at that. Like, why are you getting frustrated? Because obviously people are frustrated because the lack of control. I'm getting frustrated because I'm not getting answers. I'm getting frustrated because I can't change this. So what can you control? Because those things you can't control, you're getting frustrated, it's not going to change. So straight away, like, take a step back, what you can control. If you're, say like a boss, a manager, a business owner, and using calm communication, then you can start applying it as from now, you know, up your communication. Do you know what I mean? Start from now, like start throwing out communicative, like emails, blah, blah, a daily communicate, like even though everyone's in different parts of the country, different parts of London, so you can still come together, communicate, bring everyone together. You know, you can communicate by having a conference call, just communication, everyone throwing out what they feel, what they think, you're listening. Now they think they've got a voice. So all of a sudden now the communication is always talking. Oh, that work you sent the other day, it's hard to do because my laptop doesn't work. Usually one at work. Okay. And then all of a sudden now there's communication going on. So your production you're doing, the productivity is working. People seeing you authentic, they can see your face, you're talking. So it snowballs into another. So you can apply both tools dependent on your position, on what you do. The second part, can you share it with your team? Yeah, I think if you're again own a business, yeah, tell your team, like, I want you to cope, control what you can control. Do you know what I mean? You know, overcome anything, any negative feelings, emotion. Be productive in your time and excel. It's a great example that you want to give your team. Want everyone to cope. Do you know what I mean? I want my team to be in control. It's like, you know, I use the analogy of NFL coach. He said, do your job. You're hired to do your job. Everyone does their job like well. We've got a great team. Do you know what I mean? Everyone does their job well. So if you control what you can control, the productivity is brilliant. Overcome any negative emotions or whatever you have to, you know, for example, it's not normal. So at work, you've got a computer that runs at that speed. At home, the Wi-Fi is bad down. So you know what? Production might be a little bit slower. Overcome that. Do you know what I mean? In communication, you're going to tell your boss, these are the situations. He has to manage his expectations of you. Okay, we're not getting that sort of productivity. So what I expect from you will be this then. And now you have to work to that. So it works both ways. If you're a business owner, yeah, Cope works well for your team because you want them to control what they can control. Don't worry about the person over here, what so-and-so's doing, control what you can.
Actually, following on to that, someone asked, which opponents in your career did you admire most for their ability to cope and the pressure?
Oh, the top ones. I look at, I'll go through the ones I admire for dealing with pressure has to be the likes of Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, Ryan Giggs, because it's the longevity that they coped, and they've gone through a couple of generations as such. They coped with pressure, and they performed at an elite level over and over and over again, kept the young guns out. You know, they performed at a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, week in, week out. You know, to play at that level, to get there is great, but to be there for 15 to 20 years and play at that elite level, cope with the pressure, because now what the pressure is, not talking about external pressure, is the pressure that they set with the expectations of the standard they set for themselves. So now everyone's expecting them to produce a 9 out of 10. Anything less than a 9 out of 10, they're on a decline, they're bad. So they dealt with the pressure that they set themselves with the expectation levels of their own performance.
So one of the questions that's come through actually, Mike, which ties in with that is, as an elite athlete, you can understand that you've got a certain level of competitive drive and you're surrounded by it, and so it just continues to escalate. But where do you start? I mean, if you're not an elite athlete, if you're, whatever you're doing day to day, do you have a personal mantra what worked for you? What's the starting point in terms of, like I said, put yourself in the scenario of someone that is, they may have lost their job recently, they're not sure what's going on, we don't know how long this is going to last for. I think it's, yeah, great, okay, you've got to have that mindset, but what's the first step? What's the second step? What's the third step?
I'd say the first step is to start, and then just to be consistent, to start and be, whatever you choose. And I think that for me, the best bit about today and nowadays is, like, we have like YouTube. So whatever you want to succeed in, you got someone that's sat there and made a video to tell you, and there's got 4 other people to tell you, 5 other people. You can study and watch and learn. Whether you like reading, you can go and find a reading. If you're visually, you do it visually, you can go and watch a YouTube video. So there's all outlets where you can perfect your craft, and that's what the time, like, use it productively. Like, there's time for you to, so if someone's sitting there, they've been, in an IT guy for the best part of 10 years, but you know what, their passion is, they love art, and they can just go, you know what, I'm going to just start and use the time and work on it and start producing it, put their own flavor on it, and just doing what they're doing in this time, and just producing these great bits of art that they love doing. So, and the thing is being consistent. That to get to any elite level, it's repetition. So, I mean, not just practice. Not practice don't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And it's just repetition. So, yeah, whatever. I know some people going through transitions, they've been laid off and they're looking, so what can I do now? Well, maybe now's a great time, because the field is where it is. It's steady, it's stable. No one's doing anything. So now where everyone's sat at home, you can now perfect your craft. And when everyone has to go back out and the market's there, you're now in with everyone in your new field. So maybe it's a great chance to now go and study, sit at home, pick up a book, what you want to pick up, watch the videos, self-learn, home courses, but you have to start and be consistent.
Yeah, definitely. I think it kind of ties in with what Dan said earlier about having a structure and giving yourself targets every day. I think it's quite easy potentially to just lose yourself, but if you give yourself small goals that you can achieve day in and day out. And personally, for me, like you said, Dan, it's that I have to move. There has to be some sort of exercise that helps me to just get things moving. And then it's, what are the targets? What do I need to do today? What do I need to do before lunch? And it's just, just setting those small goals that you can follow, and then every day continuing to push. But yeah, look, great. We've only got 5 minutes left, so I'm not sure how many more questions we can squeeze in. What else do we have, Mike?
I think this is a good one as well. Michael, is it fair to say that you've learned more from the tough times in your career compared to the good times?
Yeah, I think you look for more learning in like the hard times. But my life hasn't been all tough, and there's been some great bits, but you seek more learning in, what did I get out of that? Sometimes you don't realize in the good times, but the good times, if I'm honest, you have taught me to be humble, and that's I feel one of my strengths. In the good times, everything, the heights, it showed me to be humble. in the tough times, you know, have the qualities of resilience. So there's learning in both, but I think in the tough times it highlights it, and something like times like now, people will start seeing, you know, highlighting their areas of strengths and where it come out. You know, that's always been there. It just, you know, heightens it a little bit.
Definitely. Shall we do one more, Siba?
Yeah, let's throw in one more. There's quite a few that are coming.
This is a lot of good questions that are coming
Trying to
through.
pick out one.
No.
Actually, so I think this is particularly relevant because people have a lot of time on their hands at the moment. You know, even if you are still in a full-time job, then the time that you spend traveling, you're not doing that anymore. You're not going anywhere in the evenings or the weekends. So as a footballer, you've had a lot of time away from training matches to stay focused and disciplined. Is there anything you did or experienced there that's helping you cope with lockdown at the moment and that you want to share with the rest of us?
Repeat that one again, see if I missed the first bit.
Okay, let me just pull it up again. Okay, as a footballer, you have a lot of time away from training matches, so you've got to stay focused, you've got to stay disciplined. Is there anything that you did or experienced that you have that you can share as a coping mechanism, apart from what you said already, with lockdown at the moment? Because ultimately people have time on their hands now. So how did you personally deal with all of the time that you had in your hands as a professional athlete?
To be fair, sometimes a lot of time in the hand was never a good thing. You know, you hear about young footballers, you know, getting up to no good is because time on their hands causes boredom. So I think for anyone like now, like Dan's point, you have to be disciplined. It's just the individual has to be disciplined, and as a footballer, the best footballers have the best discipline. Do you know what I mean? And it's simple as that. So you implement the discipline in, you know, in your life now, the structure, and you have to, because you can put a structure in place on Sunday. Yeah, I'm going to do this a week, and it be stopped by Tuesday. Do you know what I mean? So you have to want to be, you know what, I'm going to follow this through, until it becomes a habit, and that habit, you know, it becomes part of you. So discipline is the biggest thing that anyone can do, whether you're a sportsman, businessman, or whatever your profession or industry. You know, that's what I'd say that my takeaway from being a professional footballer is the discipline. You know, having the discipline to follow things through, having the discipline to set out a plan and see it out. So discipline is the main one.
Okay, and final question then, to wrap up then. So you see, I can see how a winning mindset of an elite athlete could help us in business, in the business world. Do you have any material or other sessions that, you know, you can share with everyone to help them develop that mindset?
I mean, I have my own thing called the Premier Mindset, which takes from like the mindset of an elite athlete. I have sessions on that. I'm currently working on a session. I'm trying to put together a call like this for people to join in and take more. So I have a few bits of material. If you go to my website, Made Leaders, or email me on info@madeleaders.co.uk, and depending on what you want, I can get back to you and we can speak from there. But there is a few bits of material.
Okay, Michael, thank you so much for today.
No problem.
There's lots of wisdom shared with everyone. So thanks everyone else for attending as well. As we've said, there's going to be the recording of this session will be made available as well. So either come to our website, apollo-solutions.com, or drop us an email. We can send some links out to you. And as Mike's just said as well, you can email him for additional information on the other stuff that he does to help you develop that Premier League mindset. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.